for joining today. This is the first part of a two series. Today we're going to focus on reporting and replacing management reporter. And then next week what we'll do is we'll focus more on the budgeting and reporting side of it. And that's going to be next week at the same time, same day. What I'll do, I'll very quickly go through a PowerPoint just to kind of illustrate how the entire suite works and how you can start by doing the reporting / management reporter replacement and then grow into the tool. And then the majority of today will go in and spend the time actually showing you both from an end user perspective and a power user that's going to be creating the template. To start off, Solver BI360, we're really in the area of corporate performance management. And what you'll see is the difference between tools like us and Jet Reports as an example is you can grow into this. So if you ever want to load in other data sources or you want to add the budgeting and forecasting, those can be set up as phase 2 or 3s. Whereas with Jet, a lot of times you're locked into just the reporting piece. So it's not something you can grow as your business requirements mature. Second, we don't compete with PowerBI.com at all. We're specifically a formatted financial and operating reporting tool. It's not going to do things such as measure attrition rates off of the certain times you guys hover on top of websites. PowerBI.com is really tailoring sales and marketing professionals, whereas we're going specifically for financial and operational folks. And that'll be illustrated when I go through and actually build a P&L. We'll skip through this, but a theme that should be consistent throughout the day is it's really a tool meant for finance and accounting to be able to create their own templates. You're not going to need to go to IT to be able to create any of your reports. And everything's Excel-based, but it's Excel-based with the ability of deploying everything on the web. And that said, we do have a truly multi-tenant version of the software in Azure. So depending on your business requirements, it's both offered as on-premise and truly cloud. Now, this is the last slide that I want to illustrate before going into the demonstration itself. And BI360 has 4 key areas. It has reporting, it has budgeting, dashboarding, and data warehousing. Now, today, our focus is going to be on reporting. Next week is going to be on budgeting and forecasting. But again, our value proposition is if you go through and just implement reporting now, 2 or 3 years down the line, you can replace other tools, you can add functionality, and everything will be nicely integrated. And we go into a lot of companies that say, hey, Alex, we have about 10 or 15 different tools, and they don't integrate. And then they end up back in Excel. So again, can't stress enough that we are an entire suite, but you can start just MR replacement as a phase 1 and then grow as you slowly start to see progress. Now here on the left-hand side, if you follow my cursor, that's going to be a reporting tool live from GP. Now what do I mean by live? It's truly when you post a journal entry, you'll immediately see that in the reporting tool. Also, what if you want to report off your subledger, off the other modules in GP? Or you want to go back and drill into, say, your vendor or your payables or receivables. All of that information you'll be able to access from Great Plains. So unlike Management Reporter, you're not just limited to general ledger data. You can go and report and drill down into any of the data in Great Plains. Okay? Now, we initially released this in the market, and this is certainly what other tools are doing, and we just did it better because it's of the ease of use. But then a lot of users said, hey, we want to load other data sources in. So your reporting tool is easy to use, but we want to do that for our CRM data, perhaps it's Salesforce, which we have a connector to. We have a proprietary data system that we want to report on. We have a payroll system. So what we did is we created this data warehouse, and effectively what it is, it's a user-friendly interface for you, and by you being finance accounting folks, to be able to handle things such as creating trees, allocations, eliminations, multi-currency, minority handling. All of those things can be handled here, and you can load in other data sources, and we're using the exact same reporting tool, you can now report across all of your data sources. That is an enormous benefit. Today, we'll focus majority of just reporting off GP, but just note that as data sources grow, you don't have to leave our tool. You can still create your reports with our Excel add-in. Now, this can be, replacing MR can potentially be a phase 1, then loading other data sources in can be a phase 2 for reporting, and then phase 3 perhaps can be adding the budgeting and forecasting piece. And what you do there is you effectively create a template and then turn it into an input form for full budgeting and forecasting. Now, last thing is deployment. So you could deploy everything in Excel. However, most users deploy everything through a thin web portal. And what it is, this component here says dashboards, but the dashboarding comes for free. And, absolutely, if you need to really measure sales and marketing data, if you have unstructured data, that's perfect for PowerBI.com, Tableau, or the slew of other visualization products. However, our dashboards are more simple, and if you need to see things such as what product lines are changing, where's my revenue and expenses going, for most mid-sized companies, our dashboards are more than enough. And regardless, you have the dashboards for free, but then you also have the ability to view all the reports and input information on a web portal. So your users don't have to VPN or Citrix in or anything like that. So that said, I know this is overwhelming, however, today what we'll do is we'll start off going in here and looking at it from a end user perspective. Then we'll switch gears a little bit, and the end user is really someone that's just going to be running the templates. So maybe a CFO, maybe a senior manager. Then we'll skip a little bit and say, all right, well, how hard is it to actually build these templates? And what I'll do is I'll build a report from scratch. Okay. So without further ado, let's go in and let's say, great, we replaced MR. How does your tool look like? And to answer that, I'll go in here and open up a web browser. So I'll open up Internet Explorer. Then I'll go and log into the web portal. And this is actually really important. I'm going to log in here with my specific credentials. So in our example, you'll kind of see all the various templates, and you see, just our standard vertical. But we have about 15 different verticals that you can log in. And needless to say, everything I'm showing today are just samples. Right? You'll be able to recreate this and tailor this to your own requirements. And this is also security, right? So based on my username and password, I can only see the specific company, department, even division that was assigned to me. And since it's unique to my username, what a lot of users like to do is go in here, toggle certain templates as favorites, and that's advantageous because what I can do now is go through and just see the ones that are most relevant for me. Now you can also switch views, by the way. You can go and say, hey, I actually want to see this format. I want to see it like this. You could put your own company background, somewhere over here. The point is you'll absolutely be able to customize this for aesthetics. But what I'll do today, I'll skip through, and like I said, we'll kind of maybe just take a look at one quick example of this. But these are the budgeting and forecasting, which you can add later. But our example, I'm going to skip through here and go into analysis and reporting. Now you can manage the folders however you want. The point here is to create a nice flow for your information and your data. I'll skip through these guys. These are dashboards. Again, more focused on the Office of Finance, as you can see. And then, as I scroll through these, right, I see the formatted reports. So yeah, this is the P&L, the balance sheet. You know, these are things that are going to clearly replace Management Reporter. But then I go in and see the sales template, the receivable, payable, and here, you know, we even took Google Analytics data and pushed that into the warehouse for reporting. So again, you're not limited to data that's in GP. I'll skip this, and maybe just because you know, I know we have a lot of finance folks on the call, I'll open up the profit and loss. And the way our templates are built, everything is ran based on certain parameters. So over here, we have the company, you know, we have the period. For you, this can be your department, this can be a division, you know, whatever parameter is relevant. And this is also where security kicks in. So if I'm limited to just seeing corporate US and corporate Canada, those are going to be the only two companies that I'll be able to select from. And the same thing here, you know, if I'm not able to see, let's say, the salary expense, great. You know, when I open up the template, I won't even see that row. Maybe I'll just see the total here. Okay? I'll expand this out a bit. You know, it was ran for corporate US, ran for the month of August. You see the revenues and the expenses here. What you'll see is when I built the report, when you add a new account, let's say you add account 40035 in Great Plains, it will automatically appear in this report. And the reason why, I'll show you when I actually build it, but you're using dynamic ranges on the row. And unlike Management Reporter, immediately the new data will populate when you click this button, refresh. Okay? What else? You can drill down into any of the data, and you know, you can drill down to the summary, and you can drill down to the subledger as well, which I'll show you momentarily. And it's funny, you know, we kind of put this on the web, and immediately someone said, hey, can I put this back in Excel to do some analysis? And the answer is yeah. You know, what you do here is I'll share. There's a QR reader. We actually have mobile apps, both in Google Play and in the Apple Store for this. So you can view your reports and dashboards directly on your mobile device. And what I'll do here is I'll go through and download this back into Excel. So I'll just say P&L, testing, save data. And that's advantageous because maybe you're getting on your flight. You can open up the P&L that I just downloaded. And now it's just a regular report in Excel. But what's really cool here, you know, I go in and say, hey, right before we close the books, I actually know my product revenue is going to be closer to $1 million. When I click enter, all of the data here changes as well, right? And that's because all these formulas that were originally created in Excel were retained in the spreadsheet, right? And you're probably answering, hey, you know, how does the account populate and how do you keep all the formulas? I promise when I built out the template, you'll see that how this is actually managed. But before that, you know, you're looking at this and you're saying, great, but what if I now want to see, you know, a different company and it's no longer August, it's September, back on the portal, right? That's where the parameters come in. So say, hey, I now want to see a different company. I want to see corporate Canada instead. And it's no longer August, it's September, right? Click a button, and then based on these parameters, you will get a brand new report. And needless to say, it ran for corporate Canada for the month of September, and you'll get the revenues and expenses associated with that. Okay. Over on the left-hand side, by the way, you see all the previous templates that was ran. Performance shouldn't be an issue because as you execute these, you know, let's say I go in and execute them, it goes in through archive, and then immediately once it processes, it's going to populate here. So you can actually execute more than one version of this report at once. And what I'll do from here is, you know, it's funny, we built these, and people said, yes, this is a report. I love it, replace Management Reporter. But what about those charts? There's always an executive that says, What about those dashboards, right? The benefit here is, yeah, you're looking at the revenue, but what if you now want to see a revenue dashboard that supports that, right? Here's a nice chart, and you'll be able to customize this. And the point is, really, you can drill in and interact with your data. So if I go in and say, well, why is corporate US the highest? You click, and you can see the product, service, and maintenance trend analysis change alongside with it. Maybe I'm looking at this pie chart, and I'm saying, hey, why is corporate US 48%? What revenue came? What was the quarter that contributed the most to that revenue? Great. Well, now you see 28% of the revenue came from the fourth quarter. Now, for you, this can be, hey, I want to drill down in which product had the most expenses or revenue, whatever is relevant. The point is here, quick and easy. Now, one more kind of just dashboard, maybe something for the CFO. And yeah, there are a lot of companies that do this, right? But what I found is, yeah, it'll give you the ability of clicking and seeing an outlier. But then what if you actually look at this and say, all right, computer equipment leasing is an outlier. I want to analyze it some more, or I want to talk about it, right? With a lot of the visualization tools, it really just kind of stops there at the charts. Here, the benefit is, yeah, you see computer equipment leasing. Now you can scroll down, right, and view an actual receivable report. Okay? And inside of here, you can always go in, click a hyperlink, actually, pull up the invoice. We have integrations with all the major document management systems out of GP. And then, if necessary, you can create a hyperlink and just post it out to a portal. Okay? The point is here, right, now it's the invoice populated. Okay? What I'll do here in a second is actually build out a template, perhaps such as the sales report, so you can see how easy it is and how not only will you replace MR, but you'll also get your operational reporting, such as this, handled. But before I do, just to kind of give you a quick glimpse, what I find really useful is, yeah, you have the reporting piece, right? But also, as a phase 2, you could add budgeting. All right, so back in this portal, yeah, you have your analysis, you have your reports, but then if you're actually ready to budget, right here, it's literally just a folder directly from within here. And I'll skip through and just kind of show you a glimpse of what you'll see in a lot more detail next week. Here you want to budget your other expenses. And this is for next year, right? So I picked my parameters. Was kind of mentioning this earlier, but here's department, so you'll only see the specific departments you'll have access to. Expand this out. You see next year's data. Over here you see actual plus forecast. And what's really nice here is, yeah, you're forecasting, but maybe you're not done budgeting. Next year, or actually next month in October, right, you see the forecast. All you have to do is go in here, click October, click a button, and now when I expand this out, okay, I see October filled in with actual data, right? So no more copy and pasting from MR into Excel to budget and forecast. I mean, this is going to really make your life easier. Now, the point of showing this template, yeah, you could just type in Excel, right? You could go in here, type in Excel, and then store that data back. Or you could go in and say, hey, perhaps for special events, what I want to do is add line item details. So I want to get more granular in my budgeting process. I can go in here and say, for special events, focus, Solver user conference, and that's going to happen in, let's say, March. You type out, and the point is, very useful for travel and entertainment. You can create a much more granular process. And for you guys, for whoever kind of decides to say, hey, well, yes, we're going to go with Solver, it's really nice for your executives to know, hey, we picked out a tool that can actually grow with our business and grow into our requirements as we scale. And there you can go, other conferences for finance, and continue adding data. You can add comments to any of this. So, this is the BI360 conference, click save, and then that data, after I click save, gets pushed back into the database. Also, perhaps for legal, you want to spread it based on seasonality. You can go in here and say, hey, I want to query the history of that. Click apply. You can see it's spread based on seasonality, right, or the history of that account. And maybe I'm growing, so I know my legal is going to grow, and I want to push this to 8%. So now every month increases by 8% here. Okay, so really useful. Every department head gets it, and they can run it for their own division, their own data set, and so on. Okay? Full workflow, by the way. So after a user submit it, you can actually track and approve them. And what I think is really nice is, yeah, you have this budgeting component that we'll focus on next week. But once you're all done, if you want to view your actual to budget, right beneath here, you can open up something simple, and now you can view a report. Okay? That gives you a year-to-date coming out of GP with the ability to drill down, your forecast that you're inputting in this system, and your budgeting, all that you're doing in one place. So that said, let's go in and let's actually see how is a report built. This is going to be a little bit of a mind change, and think now from the perspective of the accountant, or actually the person building out these templates, and we'll compare to Management Reporter. So what I'll do here, is I'll go and open up Excel. Okay? And this is important regardless of whether you're going to deploy in Excel or that web portal that I showed to you. You're going to build in Excel, and that's a huge benefit of our tool. We'll look at why in just a second. I'll go into reporting, right? And by the way, after you're done building a report, you go in here, add some minor functionality, and turn it into an input statement. I'll click new blank because we're building out a brand new one. If I did have an existing Excel template, I would select new current. Just for the tech folks in the room, you can always do a SQL output track so you can see exactly where the data is coming from. For the non-technical users, probably get rid of that. I'll pick Great Plains, click OK. And what I'm doing here, I'm just picking up the Fabricam test database that Microsoft provides for demo purposes. However, when you install the software, it's going to automatically look directly down at your GP table names. And we're really the only tool in the corporate performance management space that has that live integration to Great Plains. And the reason is, this is our target market. Consequently, we resell through the partner channel, and we're very well versed in all of the Great Plains tables. So immediately on the right-hand side, a few things to notice. One is you have access to all of the modules, not just finance, right? So you can literally report off of any of the data here. Second, all the SQL table names are translated to simple business terms. Again, easy to build, right? And when you open this up, inside of here, when I open up account string, you'll actually see your own segments here. So in Fabricam, the test database, it's account, department, division, but here if you have program instead, great, you'll see that and be able to quickly report from it. So let's go in and let's just build out a really simple report. Maybe I'll build out a trial balance. On the row, we want to go in and say, I want to see the account. Perhaps I want to see, oops, sorry about that. I want to see the description, and I want to see the year-to-date, last year-to-date, and the variance here. Okay? Maybe I want to add some light formatting. And this is, all the formatting is done in Excel, right? All the formulas and formatting, which is a huge benefit because it creates a lower barrier to entry with learning a tool. And we've picked Excel, and we've reaped the benefits of it because we realized, hey, most accounting and finance users, they want to stay in Excel. They want to have the best of Excel, but get rid of the manual processes. And that's exactly what we've done here. So just type this into Excel, made my formatting. Now you're saying, great, how's this different than Excel, right? What's all this dynamic ranges that you're talking about? And this is what it is. So I'll go in and drag and drop a count, okay, into the row. And there's really only three concepts here: row, column, or sheet. And we'll look at all three of them. In my example here, I'll select a row because I want all the accounts, boom, to list down the row, right? Similar to what you saw in the trial, in the profit and loss on the web. I'll go into this layout editor now and click and cherry pick the accounts I want. Now this is going to look down directly at your GP data, right? And you can pick your accounts. Now in my example, I'll select all of them except my 9s, right, which are my stat accounts. Also, and this is important, when I went into the web portal, I said, when you add a new account in GP, it's going to automatically update. Yeah, because you're using ranges, right? So when you add a new account, say you add account 855, right in between here, 8555, it's going to automatically appear because I'm using these ranges. If I wanted to, I can obviously get rid of them, but for your trial balance, this is actually good, right? And if I want, as good practice, in case I ever add a new account, you can go in here and say, 89999, right? And click OK. Perfect. Now all those accounts are going to expand on the row. Next, should be pretty straightforward, but you go down, drag and drop description on the same row. You scroll down. I'll grab the activity, which is that period change. Drag and drop. Drag and drop. The variance is just an Excel formula. So that's year-to-date minus last year-to-date. And again, I'm using a simple subtraction, but you're not limited to the type of formulas. If you have if statements, VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, all of those guys you can do here. And click enter. Last step, right, is on the column now. Hey, how do I differentiate this year-to-date from last year-to-date? And the way I do that with BI360 is by using functions. And we have a lot of pre-built functions. You can build your own. In my example, I'm just happen to be showing this to you with year-to-date, last year-to-date. You can run this across, any of these functions. So I drag and drop year-to-date, drag and drop last year-to-date, and I'm done with my template. Okay. Now let's look at this. What I'll do is maybe just add some light formatting here, but counting, maybe left justify. I can add a total. Could use this in Excel or this little button, create a sum, and put a counting sign and put a total. Okay? If I did want to, add bold, italicize, add borders around it, great, all Excel. Now I'm ready to run this template. So what I'll do is I have to make, as a power user, make a decision. Do I want to deploy this on the web portal? Great, that's what I just showed you. If I do, I click this button. Or do I want to just keep everything in Excel, right? The latter being your end user goes in here, they pick a posting period, same thing as I did on the web. I just go in here and I'll pick June of 2014, click a button, and now I see all the accounts, their descriptions, make it a little smaller, year-to-date, last year-to-date, along with the variance expanded on the rows. If I scroll down, equates to 0. If I add a new account, it will automatically appear here when you click this button. If your user goes in and makes some sort of mistake like this accidentally, great. All you do is rerun this, right? Same thing as next month. What do? Well, you click July, you run it, and you get an updated trial balance. This is something that accountants really enjoy. You can go in here and actually drill down to your subledger, and you can do this on the web as well. Just happen that I'm showing you here. So instead of summary, drill down, and now in this account you'll go in and I'll show you the account string, but it also show you the customer number, customer name, and if I could continue scrolling over here, the vendor, the journal entry, and the debit credit. Needless to say, this is not something you could get in Management Reporter, and something that's extremely useful to actually see the underlying subledger information. right? So, I'll go in here and say, great, I want to see one specific vendor perhaps. I'll just do two. Look at them, and I can see all the detail. If I want to customize this, by the way, and just say I want to create, I just want to see the vendor debit credit, perfect. I can create that as well. Okay. Last concept, great, but what if I also want to see it broken out by, divisions or departments? Last concept is the sheet level, right? So I'll go in here, and what I'll do is I'll say for division, drag and drop, right, into the filter. And as a parameter, I'm going to create what this is end users can select it, right, which is called a parameter. So I'll create new. Here, by the way, I can change the prompt, right, so you can customize it and say, hey, make sure it says please, and maybe choose divisions, more than one. Great. This is all style. So notice the point is here, I'm not, creating anything in SQL or any sort of coding. It's all just pressing buttons. And during training, anyone non-technical will be fully trained on creating anything they need in the software. Last thing I'm going to do, though, is create the sheet per value. I think it's a pretty powerful little button. What it does is it'll create a separate tab now for every division that I pick, right? And maybe, hey, I also wanted to the name of the division to display in the report. I just put that in here, and I'm not going to create a selection group here. Now I go in and run this, right? And if I pick up consulting training, click OK and run it, great. I now get data for consulting training. If I go in here and pick up, administration and click OK and run it, now I just get data for administration, right, with its year date, last year date, and variance. However, if I go in here and say, I want to see admin, I want to see service installation, and purchasing and receiving, and click run, and you can see how quickly, by the way, this stuff generates. I mean, this was less than 3 seconds. And now I gave you a tab for administration, a tab for service installation, right, and a tab for purchasing and receiving. All with the ability of going in here and drilling into the subledger on any of these specific accounts. All right. So very powerful tool. And before I stop, by the way, you can create it so the departments are on the column, broken out, based on how many departments you actually pick. You can create it as such so the actual months are showing. All of that, very easy to do, right? And that's really it. I mean, inside of here, if I wanted to do like a revenue and expense now, right, you change this to revenue. You go in here, right, and you say instead of picking all the accounts, maybe you just want the ones that begin with 4. Okay, good. How do I get my expenses, by the way? Just copy, paste, right? Go in here and change the filter out, right? So now I just go in and say, hey, for these guys, I don't want the ones that begin with 4. I want the ones that begin with 6, or the ones that begin with 7. And the reason I do this begins with, if you ever add a new account, it'll automatically appear here. And absolutely yes, if you wanted to, you could just say and not, and maybe just exclude one account so it'll never show up here. All right, so you could do something like this. Point of all this, you go in, just change the title, to get your, net income, whatever. That's just an Excel formula. All right, so if I wanted net income here, that's just your revenues minus your expenses. Okay? If I wanted a percentage here, let's say net income divided by revenue or something like that. Good. All right, that's just an Excel formula again too. It'll give you a div error, but it's totally fine when I actually run the template. It'll show you the numbers. That's it. And now I can continue doing this and create my entire P&L like that, copy and pasting, adding my COGS, and so forth. So when I run this now, and maybe just pick this up to 0, 0. I think that's where all the revenues are in Fabricam. So now I run this, okay, and for my revenues and expenses, I now see it, my revenues for 00, my expenses for them, for Department 100 administration, just the expenses specific to that, for service installation, and so on. Okay? So departmental P&L created pretty simply. That's it. Anything else, just an iteration of these same concepts. Very powerful tool. Now, what else can you do? You could deploy it on the web portal, which I showed. You can also deploy it via a tool called the Report Publisher. And what that does, that automates the otherwise manual push of these templates. So if you want to say, hey, I want certain users to always get this sent out, emailed out, or saved to a folder somewhere at a certain time and date, perfect. You schedule and it automatically sends it out to them. And you can add other documents such as Word documents or PowerPoints onto that as well. Right? And if we have time, we'll take a look at that tool at the end. But what I want to do is transition out a bit and show you the Report Composer, which is our ad hoc reporting tool. Okay? I'll open up Report Composer, and this is for for the users that are familiar with SmartList. Kind of very similar to that, right? Except much more powerful. And I always get this question is, hey, can you get the exact same information using our Excel-based, what I just showed you? The answer is yes, but this is just quicker and good for on-the-fly analysis. And we'll take a look at exactly what that means in a sec. So you can see on the left-hand side all of the, I'm getting a little delay here in my GoToMeeting. Give me 1 second. And there you go. So over here, same modules as we saw. So everything that you have in GP. And since we just looked at finance, right, we'll take a look at a different module. But really what you do, 3 concepts. Drag and drop the data you need into this white space, step 1. Step 2, you filter it. Step 3, you organize the data. So let's go in and let's take a look at purchasing. So we do something different than finance, right? And what I'll do is open up, maybe just this payables transactions, and I can drag and drop vendor. I can also just double click. So double click, and you see the vendor name. What else do we want here? Well, maybe we want the document date, the document number, the due date. We'll grab the inside of posting period or the period end here, and maybe we want the document amount here. Great. When I refresh this now, it'll give us all of the data that's in the database, right? But we don't want all the data, right? We don't want 2017 in here, 2016. Maybe we just want the first few months of 2014. So step 2, I filter the data set, right? I go in here and say, great, drag and drop posting periods, and I want to see just the first few months of 2014. Click those, click OK, refresh, and now just filter out the data to give me 2014. Step 3, you organize the data set. So maybe I want to see the months side by side. I can go in, right click, expand this out, and now I see the months here that have data side by side. What else? I mean, it's really easy to customize, right? If I want to get rid of this vendor and just group by vendor name and see the totals, right? Great. Now I see by totals how it looks by month. Okay? And that's it. I mean, everything else, right, is just an iteration of those 3 examples. So if, instead of here, what I wanted to do is actually go in and, say, hey, I want to see, right now it has all the vendors here, right? I want to see just specifically a few of these vendors, right? So I can drag and drop in here and say, I just want to see this one, and this one. Let's just do 4 because I'm not sure where their data is. Click OK, refresh. Great, now I just see these vendors. Let's actually change these out to put the description in there. Vendor with name. Probably just looks better than just having the code here. now that I have this, great, same thing, right? I can organize it and see the vendor and the vendor name side by side, okay? And based on the parameters I picked, right? I see these three. So, pretty much it, but very useful concept here. Go in, add some more, click OK, refresh. Great, now I'll see columns for those as well, so I can compare them side by side. And you can do this across any of the modules. If you have the data warehouse, you can do the same analysis across your ADP data, any other data sources you have. Another thing that I found really useful is, perhaps after you're done with this template, you're saying good as an ad hoc query, but I do want to turn this into a template, right? A full report. What you can always do is, you can export into regular Excel, you can export it into a PDF, or you could push it into our report designer, right? Which we just looked at. So I'll say yes. Do you want to create a parameter for posting periods? Sure. I'll just skip through this, and this should be familiar, right? These are all the parameter creating that we created in the previous template. I'll say sure. I want my end user to be able to select the vendor as well. Click this button, and now the exact same template. Great, you're ready to add subtotals. You're ready to really add some conditional formatting in Excel, and you're really now ready to turn it into a full input statement. Okay. So I'm done. I apologize. I didn't mean input statement. We're not budgeting here. I just meant report. So this is now just a report. And you run it. Your user again selects period. Kind of looked at that. You can select more than one. They select the vendors here. Run it. And now they have the vendors, the dates, the document numbers, the due dates, and so on. All with the ability of going in here and drilling back and seeing any detail information here. Okay? So, really powerful tool. Let me show you a few more reports at a GP. And by the way, this is really important. We have a full library of reports. These are just some of the ones at a GP. We have many more. So the point is, you're not starting from scratch by any means. You're taking these, you're modifying them a bit, and then you're running them for your own data. Maybe we'll just look at a few of these. So here's an example of something that shows your AP aging and your AR aging. So you have two separate tabs here, and you have a summary tab, right? Which what it is you can search, and it'll pull up, the amounts for certain aging and payables and receivables. So again, you pick vendors, right? You pick your customers. So the asterisk is all wildcard in BI360. Click a button, and now these pull up with information, right? But if you wanted to, for example, go in here, right? So aging, AP aging, and AR all fill up with information. But on the front tab, if you want to go in here and say, hey, perhaps I just want to see, hauling or something like that, I can go in here, say hauling, and now it'll, well, if I spell it correctly, it'll pull in the invoice. Let's take another one, maybe this guy downtown or something like that, right? So I go in here, type in the number, and it'll bring back the actual invoice. Okay. What else? This is an example. Maybe you want to reconcile your payables to your actual general ledger. So in the same template, it'll bring your account string, your original document number, document date, and right below will bring your vendor information. So pick your parameters, run this. And hopefully you're seeing like this could save you a lot of time, because instead of having two different Excel spreadsheets and then having to then run them over and over, you have one, right? So you have the full account string, the original document number, but if I scroll down to the bottom, it'll actually reconcile that to the vendor and the document amount. Okay. Maybe a few more here. Allocation templates. Right, so you can allocate directly within here. You can see how it's coming from one department, getting allocated to the various ones you have, it's set up for. Pick your periods, pick where you want to allocate it from, to, asterisk, it just goes in and shows you, hey, here's where it gets the total expenses. Click, you can see all the accounts it's getting allocated from. and over right below, you can see how the expenses are allocated based on the departments. Okay? Click, you can see the detail information. If I want to just go in here and say, hey, I don't want to see all of these departments, I just want to see how it's getting allocated to this one and this one, right? Click OK, run it, and now the expense will change, and I'll see how it's getting allocated. It's just accounting, it's consulting training. Okay. Last template, and then I'll get into something a little bit more intuitive of other data sources. Here you go in, right? You pick up your salesperson, right? You can pick up your period, and this is just something more that shows you your sales data, right? They'll give you the customer, the salesperson that sold that customer, and so on. Point here is simple. You can use any of the examples that I showed you to pull data from your other modules that you leverage in GP, right? So it's by customer, by the salesperson you selected. They'll give you, right, a tab for each and every salesperson and the products that they sold. Okay? If I just want to see Greg and Nancy instead of all of these guys, great, pick up Greg, pick up Nancy here, click OK, run it, and now I see those two tabs. Okay? So I see Greg, I see Nancy, all of the ability of going in here, drilling in, and if I wanted to, it drills back directly into the SOP module. Okay, so customer number, posting period, and so on, right? So really good for analytics. Now you're saying, hey, this is great, but pretty simple. Yes, we'll replace SSRS. I'll probably replace Management Reporter. What else can it do? And this can be now a phase 2 for you to load other data sources in, right? Hopefully you're understanding. Now I'm just kind of skipping, showing you everything in Excel, where you could deploy all this on the web portal. Budgeting templates, we'll go through in a lot of our modeling and budgeting next week. But for now, going into reporting, coming in here, and maybe I'll just open up kind of one of my favorite templates. You can leverage all of those, and we have various verticals. Here, now that you kind of saw how a template was created, I think you can appreciate that nothing here is hard-coded. If I go into any of the tabs, it's really pulling live from the database. Okay? And what it's going to do is going to all roll into a news tab. So if I'm looking at this, always give you your top 10 receivables, right? It always give you your, in this example, top 10 payables, top 10 vendors, your sales data, just charts in Excel. You can look at a P&L here and say, see that doesn't have any information yet, right? And that's because all of this information is going to get driven based on my parameters, right? And it's also an alert tab. You're probably saying, where's all the information? Great. All the information is right here, right? It's going to, all the numbers and the actual words are going to change based on the parameters that you select. So when I go in here and say, hey, I want to see, corporate US, I want to see actual compared to budget, and I want to see, September as the month here, click OK and run it. Now for those parameters, all these tabs are going to fill up with data, right, naturally, reflecting these, and it's all going to roll into this news tab. So it now, goes in, and you can see right now it says description and period end, right? After this report executes, which is now it goes in and says, hey, corporate US, right, sees great improvement in the month of September, because that's what I picked here. I can close out of this. Tells you how profitable you were, your top line, who your top customers were, your products, who you owe money, and who we owe money to. Okay? And you're wondering, hey, how do those words populate? They populate because these are if statements in Excel, right? But it's useful because you create this stuff once, and then you recycle it over and over. So as you go below a certain threshold, maybe the word week will show up instead of great. And dashboard, just quick chart in Excel. As your debt equity ratio changes, will change as well. Trend, so 12 months rolling trend here. A P&L variance, right? So your actual compared to your prior year as of September. We kind of looked at this, but yeah, it expands to show you the accounts on the rows, okay, with some conditional formatting in Excel. But it also does that on the column level. So for September, when I open this, it gives you 9 months of data, right? So a cash flow statement, balance sheet, a few more just regular charts in Excel, sales template, or I can go in and say, oh, I want to see the salespeople that sold that product, the date they sold it, quantity, top 10 vendor payments, and receivables. And same concept here as with my trial balance, right? If I go in next month and Castle and Resort is no longer in the 10th place, maybe there's another customer that superseded this $70,053, well, that's going to now appear in the 10th place instead. Okay? So everything's dynamic. And that's where, when I go in here and say next month, right, the same P&L, I want to now see it for October, click a button, all these tabs now are going to change, right, to show you the actual data that's in October. And as that changes, hopefully the words will change as well, right, in case you're, if you have different performance thresholds. Okay? So now, kind of same tab here, the P&L, we just see that it goes in and shows you data for October, right, with the conditional formatting. And if I expand this out, it now gives you obviously 10 months instead of 9. Okay? Adjust the cash flow, adjust all these tabs, and the news tab changes as well, just to say, hey, corporate US sees weak decline, right, in October. You didn't do that well. And then alerts too, where you can actually say, hey, if it goes above a certain variance threshold, show this in red, right? So when you run this, these are things that you really should be paying attention to. Point is here, you can pull data from any data sources. It's easy to create, and after you're done creating it, you can either deploy it in Excel, like I showed you, or you can deploy it on the web portal by clicking this button. Okay? Add some functionality, turn into a budgeting template, and again, everything gets deployed in one web portal, like I showed in the beginning of the presentation. So what I want to do now with the remaining 2 minutes we have is just to recap. What we did is we started by looking at this piece where you'll get your reports. Dashboards are free. I did want to show you a few of those. And if you want, you can add the budgeting component, which we'll go into a lot more detail next week. All in one place for your end user. Benefit of having in one place, well, you can view your actual to budget in one place. You don't need a VPN or Citrix in. And as you saw, it's a very nice portal, right, to get everything in one place. Then we went on and I actually created a report live from GP, created off finance to hopefully illustrate that it's way easier to use than MR. Then I showed you can drill down and create the same templates using the same logic that I showed you off any of the data in GP. And you can load in other data sources in here. And the last template that I showed to you, same exact tool, but we can pull data across many data sources that's coming from the warehouse. And then the ad hoc reporting tool, it's just quick on-the-fly analysis. And again, it's not necessary. I can always give you guys trial keys for that. You can test it out. And if it's a good fit, then you can move forward with that report composer tool. And the report publisher module, that's the one that sends out templates to end users. You can go and scale into the solution, and if this is of interest to you, like I said a few times, everything I showed you today are just examples. We can actually gather your requirements and show you something more specific to your business based on the over 15 verticals we have built out. Last thing here, leave my contact information. Jim will follow up with you as well. If you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to us. We're running out of time a bit, so I'm not going to be able to read off the questions. But again, would love to chat with you. Thank you so much for your time. And Jim, anything else to add before we wrap up?
That's it. If there's no more questions, as Alex mentioned, I'll touch base with each of you to see if you are interested in taking the next step and taking a look at Solver a bit further. Other than that, thank you for joining us. Have a great day, and we hope to see you same place, same time next week for budgeting and forecasting with BI360. That said, have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.